There he goes. Where are you? There it is. Hey, check you out.
Hey, what's going on? I definitely have figured out that it's the phone. This
Okay.
is coming from a laptop. This is gonna get better because once I set up the camera, it's gonna look better.
No, it's all good. You
But it
stop.
definitely, am I coming across pretty good?
Yeah, you're good. You're solid. No lag, no nothing.
All right, love it. Yeah, I think this is what we need to do moving forward. But man, I really wanted to ask Marcelo Balboa a little bit about some of the things he mentioned. Look, he's one of my favorite, by the way. I love Marcelo Balboa. He tends to give it to you straight, but he's also um, not since not hyperbolic with his takes, and I really like that. I don't think he clickbaits. He doesn't rage bait. So I really like him a lot. I was hoping to ask him a little bit about this whole situation of the midfielders because he sounded pretty certain there about not having any weaknesses, and I love that, man. I really he talks about men having to grind behind the big stars like Argentina and did with Lionel Messi. And I think that the U.S. men's national team has that. And if there's anything that Pochettino has emphasized on, has been some of that grit, some of that determination, and some of those guys that are going to be pushing the McKinneys, the Pulisic's, and yeah, I really wanted to talk to him about the whole Christian Roldan and the center midfielders.
Well, I mean, hey, now we know we have the studio situation situated with you. We got the temporary fix, and then when the computer is all gassed up and ready to go, we got you good to go. So we were talking about Bradley Carnell, and you're not a guy that wants to do rash decision making.
Oh yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
I mean,
100%.
but I mean, when you're 1-9-4 or 1-10-4, and you're at this particular point of the year, it seemed like a natural place. If you wanted to make a decision, then this would be a natural place to do it. So you could have 7 weeks to sit there and get it all squared away.
Yeah, and kind of what I said, I think before I cut off, is that regardless of you wanting to leave a coach in order to have a process and respect the process and respect his ability to install his curriculum, but Brady Cornell had a couple of things going against him. One, he was already with the team a couple of years. He put this team at the top of the mountain, right? I mean, they were the supporters shield. I believe he was coach of the year, if I'm not mistaken,
I mean,
right?
yeah, I mean, you're getting supporter shield, but that's the thing though, is that when you're in St. Louis and he does the same thing, first year in St. Louis, and the example that I always give in this case is you're the pitcher that gets called up from AAA, and no one's got book on you. And so you're thrown into that major league start. It's like, oh crap, we got to call this kid up from Tacoma and he's got to start for us tonight. And no one's got book on him. He goes 5 2/3, gives up an earned run. They pull him with runners on base. He's in there long enough to get the win. And then he does well enough in the subsequent start. There's a couple of starts to stay up with the big club. First time through the league, they don't have book on him. And so he's going to be, he's going to be that guy that goes 5, gives up an earned run, maybe goes 6, gives up 2. But the second time through the league is when everybody catches up to him.
Sure.
And I think that's what's happening repeatedly now with Bradley Carnell. In St. Louis, first time through the batting order. Everybody doesn't know what to expect with Bradley Carnell. We see what we see with St. Louis with having Berkey in net, and you've got Lewin and Joao Klaus, and you don't know how quite to respond to it. But then you go into the playoffs, and it's a best of 3. You do all of that great work in St. Louis. Into the playoffs in a best of 3, you get swept, and you basically get horizon jobbed out of the playoffs. Second year in the league, everybody knows what's coming, that, he might not be able to get you on a short term, but we can get you in a series. And then he has that rough start in year 2. Lutz Pfannenstiel gets rid of him. And then Philadelphia is like, oh, we'll bring that over here. First time through the league. Jim Curtin adjacent when it comes to his game plan. Has problems, in the Eastern Conference. Everybody didn't figure him out. But this year, you jettison a lot of your vets, a lot of your key vets, and you see what happens with only one win to the World Cup break.
Yeah, and that's what I would say if I'm playing devil's advocate, is simply that, using the pitcher analogy, I mean, look, you could, have a mean fastball and a phenomenal C12 curveball. And maybe you did well your first year because you had a whole bunch of really good offensive power batters that would allow you to rest a little bit in between innings. But if you get rid of all those big time batters, and now all of a sudden I'm finding myself 3 and out, and I got to be out there on the mound, 3 and out, I'm getting myself out in the mound, I'm going to get beat up because I don't have time to rest. My arm's getting tired. And I think that that's what happened to Cornell, because regardless of me understanding that there was such a series of bad results that there was no way you were going to be able to keep Cornell, he was also given a bad hand because you let go of Kai, you did not replace him. You let go of Baribo, you did not replace him. You let go of all of these players that were important to the team, and now you were expecting Cornell with all these youngsters to just do it all over again. And even himself, he said that they went too heavy on the young players. And this is a team that's bottom last when it comes to salary or spending, 11 million. They getting rid of Glesnes is something that I still will never understand. I don't understand what they were thinking, or what the thought process was there. He was the one solution to that back line. He was the leader. He was the one that puts it all together. And all of it just changed. So too many pieces left and none were replaced for me to only blame Cornell for this whole situation. But again, as I mentioned before I got cut off,
Yeah.
there is always a royal flush of bad results that a head coach is given that you cannot get rid of. And once that happens, it's over, baby. I mean, it's over. And a 6-4 loss to Inter Miami was simply the last drop. And I understand why he was let go. You know what? Usually I don't believe the whole, it's mutual to part ways. In this instance, look, if I'm Cornell, I gotta also save face a little bit and say, whatever I'm doing is not working. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm gonna move on. So it was a situation that just got progressively bad. But I just want to reiterate that this is not just on Cornell. This is on a bad front office that had a bad plan, that created a bad roster, and the results proved it.
So then when you look at the 6-4 first set won by Inter Miami, and second set starting, and Seattle, and then Philadelphia will have the serve. How much of an indictment is a game like that on Messi and friends? Because when Philly gets out to a 2-0 lead, then it's, I think, 3-1, then it's 3-3, then it's 4-3, then it's 4-4, all in the first 45 minutes. I mean, this, look, you go to Pullman, and if you go to Pullman on a weekend, like when you and I were in college, there was always that group on the floor in the dorm on a Friday night that had the plastic wading pool, and they'd go to the store. They'd go to Albertsons or to Ralph's. They'd get all of the fruit that they could find. They throw it in the wading pool. Then they throw all of the alcohol they can find in a 10-mile radius into that wading pool, and you come up with this hunch punch mix. That's what that first half of the game was on, was that mix that the dude who's in the middle of the dorm on the floor is like, here, try this, this is great. And then you end up, stumbling out of the room and falling down in the hallway. That's what that game was on. How much of an indictment is it on Philly with a makeshift backline, and you're bringing up three dudes from Union 2, Sundstrom and LeBlanc, and I'm missing the third one, and it's going to kill me, but three players you bring up from twos. You're having issues at the backline. It's young. You're going to Miami. You're getting the offense on the board. They come back. You get the lead again. They come back, and it was chaos. I mean, how much of this is a double indictment here?
I mean, it's clear. I mean, there is no way that either Hoyos as a coach or Messi as a leader of a group came out happy with that result. I mean, yes, you got the win, but giving up those 4 goals, you were down initially. Yes, once again, you come back, but it's a huge indictment on what we've seen out of Inter Miami for a very long time, which is This team cannot defend to save their lives. They don't have anyone that could hold possession. They're a team that completely relies on whatever Luis Suarez can do, that just all of a sudden came back into 2010, Pistolero Suarez in this particular game. You're able to get your superstars into this game and perform. But at the end of the day, swinging back and forth goals is not what you want. You need to be more in control. So it's definitely an indictment on how unbalanced this team is and how reliant they are on certain players. And that's just never a good thing. I've been wrong before because that's kind of how they won last season.
Mhm.
But it's just not the optimal way for you to get it going, especially when you have Messi coming out because he felt a little tickle in his muscle and he knows that the World Cup's coming up, so he's got to get out of it. And it's all fine and well, but eventually you're going to need other players to perform. Eventually you're going to have to hold possession and control the game and control the tempo, and that's what Miami has been unable to do. And on the other end, Philadelphia, look, with the little bit that they had, as you mentioned, bringing up players from the second team. Look, Ilowski is a guy that I really like, and he, gets a hat trick. Can you do more of that with him? You know what? Maybe, but it's just not enough. It's just not good enough. Even when you're players of talent and the little bit of things that you have going for yourself are now are working to the max capacity, and you still can't pull off a game. It's hard to ask Bradley for more.
So then how do you think Casemiro fits into what's going on at Miami Airport adjacent new stadium? How does this work?
Look, Casemiro is a guy that's going to provide you something that you don't have, and is a ball winner in the midfield, a quality, categorically one of the best CMs that are out there, that have been out there for a while. He's a dog. DePaul might act like Messi's bodyguard, and he might be able to get away with certain things, but he's not that guy. He's not that dog, right? And Casemiro, he gives you a little bit of that. This is gonna sound kind of funny, ironically, but he's like a Mascherano type, right? That Mascherano no longer in the team, obviously, but he's a Mascherano type on the field, right? He's a leader. He's gonna go head to head. He's gonna win duels, and he's still doing it. 34 years old, and he's still playing excellent. So he's gonna be a good find for this team, and I think it could really work.
Okay, because obviously they'll find a way to fit him in. That's once again, we've gotten into that discussion about bringing in big dogs and making them fit and under caps and under capology and all of that. But you look at the East, and it's still Nashville, and with what BJ Callahan has been able to do as we get here through match day 14 for them. Berhalter in Chicago, they're 5 points back. New England with Marko Mitrovic, they're at 25 points. That's your top four. So Chicago finding their way under Berhalter, behind Messi and friends. New England with Turgeman and with Luca Langoni and all of these pieces, and Carlos Gil, who doesn't have to be the man anymore. He can be a man. He doesn't have to be the man. So you're seeing teams coming at it in the East from a couple of different directions where you bring in new faces, they integrate well, new coach. You bring in faces, they integrate well, you're looking to add more. In Chicago, you're integrating well, second year there. And then you've got Messi and friends, and then you've got what BJ Callahan's doing in Nashville. And that's your top four in the East. Vancouver and San Jose, 2 wins clear of everybody else in the West. Vancouver, I think we'd anticipated, once again, it's the same dudes. That's going to be their thing. San Jose, with what Bruce wants to do. I admit I freaked out when they lost Christian Espinosa. I'm like, dude, what happened there? It's like, well, shows you. And Bruce just kind of sits there. And here's my Bruce Arena impression. Here's my Bruce Arena impression. So literally, I'm sitting here at the beginning of the year freaking out about Espinosa. Here's Bruce. That's Bruce. Literally, he's not sitting straight in his chair. He's just kind of slunk down, and he's watching everything else, and he might get up to kind of watch everything. He's just like, yeah. That literally, I'd be like, you see? And so it's Vancouver and San Jose right now. And then you look at the other top four, RSL with their young guns, Dallas is a bit of a surprise for me, but Peter Musa can take you places. LAFC, Seattle, Houston, Minnesota, and LAG wrap out the West. When you look at the West, what stands out to you right now from what you're seeing?
Look, first of all, real quick on the East, the only team I'm not buying still is the Revolution. I feel like that's going to come down here pretty quickly in the second part of the season. That's just me throwing it out there.
Mhm.
Love Nashville, really like Chicago, firepower, good system. I think that both of those places have coaches that can continue to build on what they have done so far. Don't know if they have it in New England. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't quite see it. And in the West, it is pretty clear that where we were at the beginning of the season has really come to fruition, with the exception of maybe San Jose. San Jose has been a surprise, but all the other teams, I think we expected them to be as good as they are. Vancouver, without a doubt, to me, are the top of the crop in the West. They are the ones that have the better team. They have the kind of the all the elements that you need for a championship team. They're good defensively, phenomenal midfield. They have the star power. They have Brian White that is on a tear as of recent, and you have a phenomenal coach. So, my host Ari Lillenwall asked me last week about, when you look at the West, is there, he was trying to argue that there weren't many teams in the West that were better than the Sounders, and I don't know if that's true. I mean, the Vancouver, the Sounders have done great, and they have performed well, and they have a good system. But when you talk about having a team, like a full-on team, and you look at the rosters and you look at what they were able to do all season, how consistent Vancouver's the better team. I mean, they're just the top of the Western Conference to me. There's just no doubt about it. I think that it is still a pretty open West, right? Because just because they're the better team doesn't mean that they're going to be able to stay there. I really like RSL. I'm still not necessarily full on San Jose, because I do feel like Shaqiri is a huge problem if he's not back, right? He's got that lower body injury. We don't know what's going to happen. Timo Werner's been on and off, and you could see the top talent that they did have bring down that team to a little bit of a reality. So we'll see what happens with San Jose and Bruce Arena. But the rest of those teams, with the exception of Dallas has been a little bit of a surprise for me as well. They have some players. The coach has been better than I thought he was. He simplified the game a lot for Dallas. But I don't know if they really have that controlling midfield. I don't know if they have the defensive fortitude to really be a contender in the West, but they're in the mix. They're absolutely in the mix.
Yeah. I guess we call it DTF, huh? Defensive testicular fortitude. Is that what we call it, DTF going forward? Portland. They finally made the trigger. They made the decision on Phil Neville, and you figured it was coming. You didn't know when, but leading into the World Cup break, they made their decision, and so Portland now has to try and rebuild and regroup now with Phil Neville having parted ways with the organization.
I think he will make a phenomenal broadcaster. My guy, Phil, you're a cool dude, likable. You got a name. Coaching is not for you. Just go ahead and pass it on, move on, join Apple TV, join CBS. I don't know, but I think he's a nice guy. He is interesting, says some really cool stuff. But at the end of the day, he never showed up. I don't think he showed up when he was in Miami. I don't think he showed up when he was with the Timbers. He had moments. I think he's very motivational, and I'm sure that I'm not sure. I'm certain that he has way more of a skill set, and he's way more qualified to do what he does than many people out there. But it just hasn't worked out. And Sounder fans are actually pretty sad that he's leaving because
you beat up on him so much.
It was certainly nice to have a coach that was easy to beat, that had the team in shambles, that was broken up. So, right here in the Pacific Northwest, that was sad news here. People were hoping that Phil was going to continue to do just enough to keep that job, but he was unable to do it. But look, going back to the reality, the team was kind of broken. You saw frustration on the field, players going at players. The coach was having awkward post-game conferences, throwing the team under the bus, whether it was settled or straightforward. I have heard from players in that locker room that talked about how many of them felt like the coach was often trying to blame them for what was going on when it was just a lot deeper than that. So, look, that roster is not terrible. They should be better than they are. And I don't know if a new coach is going to do it immediately and bring the team back. But, there are some pieces in that team that are very interesting. It's just that it seemed like none of the players were buying in what the coach was coaching. And when you have that disbalance and you have that disconnect, it's just never going to work.
One final thing I wanted to get into with you that has nothing to do with Major League Soccer. I was watching last night, and it was, it was one of those elements where you're in Copa Libertadores, and it's decision day. It is match day 6. You're in Group D, and I was locked in on the plot line there in Group D because after 5 matches, it was a jumbled mess that needed some fixing. Universidad Católica, Cruzeiro, and Boca Juniors. Universidad Católica scores early, gets a 1-0 lead at La Bombonera. They hang on. Boca Juniors out of Libertadores, finishing 3rd in Group D, and looking at Teise after the match was over, because Teise likes to be at these hot spots and they'll do the man on the street stuff outside the stadium. Folks were pissed. And it does make interesting television, but it speaks to the larger picture. And you're wondering what is going on at Boca Juniors. And it's still what is going on at Boca Juniors, because we had the same questions at River with Gallardo. Now you're looking at Ubeda. And I'm surprised I haven't seen anything this morning from Boca about Ubeda not making it out of the locker room, and he got tarmacked and, didn't make it home still being coach. I mean, Boca and River, man, it's like they're just getting pounded on the ropes. It's just that there's no fixes there.
I have seen more turmoil with Boca Juniors over the last couple of years than I can remember. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it has been because of the front office and the president, and, people had just daggers for some of the acquisitions that they have made over the last couple of seasons. The stigma that they have in South America for MLS, and some of these MLSers going back to their teams. It was just not a good sight. So, look, I don't think it was the coaching. This was a good game, and Universidad Católica did their job. Like, they had a game plan. They knew they were the lesser team, mm-hmm. and they just put it together, and they really frustrated Boca Juniors. So I don't see it in the coaching. I just see that sort of anger and frustration from the fan base. Long time coming. It's like there's resentment and there is frustration that has just built up, and that's where you get that sort of situation. But it is the front office, and it is that inability for the fan base that I've heard of to feel connected to that front office, like they give a shit. It's been a long time.
There's the E rating for us on a Friday. Attaboy.
It's been a long time since I've heard the fan base think that the front office cares enough to just do more. And I feel like that's where the frustration has lied.
Oh, watching that man on the street interview stuff outside the stadium last night. That was television. When people were so mad they couldn't talk and formulate sentences. By the way, Universidad Católica on the road last night in the juice boxes was a plus 600.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, look, I wouldn't. I'm not taking that, but man, it's beautiful. And if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen in Libertadores, and in this situation, and against a team that has been under it. Look, Riquelme has been under fire. I'm still surprised that he's still the president. I mean,
he was catching hell last night, man.
he's been catching hell for like 2 years. I mean, he was a great player, but as a president, it just the shine has run off, and I'd be surprised if there's not a change beyond the coaching staff in Boca Juniors.
And for those that didn't watch the game, there's a name last night that folks know who was sitting on the bench and wasn't getting any minutes. Cello Wagan. He's a part of that roster now. So, yeah.
And Velasco too. He was out there.
And so you got that going on with Boca Juniors. I had to drop that one in here since it's a Friday and everything else is on the table. What is the latest? What's going on at Pulso Sports and Sounder at Heart and all the things? What do we need to know?
Oh, yeah. Well, look, the break is here, but that doesn't mean that we're going to stop. We just today we're dropping a really, really fun what we learned this week with Jeremiah Oshan. No video in this one. We're having some studio stuff that we're working out, but the audio will be out there. You'll see it on YouTube on Sounder at Heart. You see it on our podcast network on Nos Arietes in the Sounder at Heart podcast network. Really fun. Kind of a breakdown, a picture of what you've seen from the Sounders this first half of the year. We look into what needs to happen, some summer transfer stuff that you're going to want to watch, where the Sounders are scouted, what they might be able to get. I'm almost certain. I said I'm 70% sure that there'll be at least 2 new players in this summer window, and 80% that at least one will be a new player will be picked up during the summer. So whether it's a U22 or an experienced MLSer, I think that the front office knows that there's a responsibility to get this team to the next level, and you need a little bit more talent. So that's a good one. We also talk about Christian Roldan, this USMNT discourse. So check that one out. We have some really fun interviews that I'm not going to say quite yet, but we got them planned.
Mm-hmm.
We still got to secure one more. That's going to be a big one for us. So just check it out. Wait for it. Sounder at Heart, Lobbin Scorchers, Pulso Sports. We're going to have a lot of content coming up here, some in Spanish, some in English, throughout the World Cup, of course. So MLS stop, but we continue to provide content.
You know it, brother. As always, it's great to see you, and I'm glad we have found the stopgap. We put the we put the plug back in the bathtub, and we got it all figured out until the studio space gets all squared away. It's great to see you, my friend. Great to have these conversations that we do. Have a fantastic weekend, and we will catch up with you next week.
You the man.